Welcome to episode 5 of Let's Talk with Peart, and this week I'm joined by the utterly delightful national treasure that is Lorraine Kelly. One of the things I've always loved about Lorraine is how she's been an ally for LGBT plus rights for a number of years, and in this episode she discusses her friend Gary, who died in the 80s from AIDS-related illnesses, how times have changed, and how her proudest achievement is being crowned by attitude as an honorary gay. She discusses her upbringing, how she met her husband, and what a typical day as a breakfast TV host looks like. She is so warm. I met her a few years ago and she jumped at the chance to do this, which I am so grateful for. So enjoy, subscribe, rate, do everything I have asked of you and more, and enjoy as you listen to the queen of daytime telly, Lorraine Kelly. I am joined in the studio, delighted, thrilled, ecstatic to be joined. I mean, okay, this lady needs no introduction. You have Madonna, you have Adele, and we have Lorraine.
You can't put me up there with those two icons. How kind of you, Lee. That's lovely.
Lorraine Kelly, thank you so much for doing this. I did put on my Instagram yesterday, and it is true. I put on my Instagram a little teaser saying, I'm recording with my guest tomorrow, very excited. And I said something like, you wake up with her every morning, Monday to Friday. And before I even carried on, people already knew.
They got it.
They knew.
Oh, that's good.
So loads of people have
That's
clearly woken up with you in the morning.
I know, it is odd, isn't it, when you think of the time that we're on. The amount of people that say to me, oh, I watch you in my bed, or I watch you when I'm brushing my teeth. And then some other people go into a little bit more detail. And I just think, no, they're fine. I'll just leave that there.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Like kind of see...
Yes.
Oh, right, okay.
But most people are watching when they've got the kids off to school and they maybe come back, and I just always say, leave the washing up, leave everything, sit down, make yourself a cup of tea and have a little hour to yourself.
A little comfort hour.
Yeah, it's a little bit, because, when you think about my show, I've got two very noisy men. Between me, I've got Piers,
yeah.
And then there's me, and then there's Jeremy Kyle. So there's two noisy guys either side of me. So we're a little quiet a little quiet space.
You're the mattress topper.
Absolutely. That's a very good description. I like that.
Let's talk about, you've been in telly now for, is it over 30 years?
It is, love. It's 35 years in breakfast telly. Before that, I left school and I went into my local newspaper in the East Kilbride News, which is where I started. And then I went to the BBC Scotland I only lasted a bit less than a year there, because I was told by the big boss that I would never make it in television because my accent.
Yeah.
This is BBC Scotland, by the way.
What? Because you're Scottish.
But the thing was, back then in the 80s, people didn't really speak like me. You didn't have, Ant and Dick with, they've also got a beautiful Geordie accent. Eamon, lovely Irish accent. Mm-hmm. Myself. You didn't have people like us. It was very, very unusual to have someone with, with an accent, really.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because Kay Adams, yeah. I was working with last week on Loose, of course. Yeah. And they showed a clip of her interviewing Margaret Thatcher, and her accent, obviously she's Scottish. Yeah. It was like a kind of posh. Was
she putting on a posh voice?
Honestly, if you go on YouTube, she was. But she was saying, just like you just said, so the time back then, they were like, you won't make it.
No. They told me to have elocution lessons, which I obviously couldn't, because I just thought, I can't. If I'm going to be doing live telly, you can't do that. You've got to be yourself. Do you know what I mean? So, as luck would have it, sometimes the stars align. Literally on that day when he said that to me, somebody said to me, oh, the guy from TVAM who covers Scotland for TVM, he's leaving. A guy with the magnificent name of Torquil Riach. What a great name that is. He's going, and I thought, well, do you know what? And I just picked the phone up and asked to be put through to the boss of TVAM, and they said, come down, and I interviewed and I got the job.
Wow.
And I would never actually have the nerve now to phone up the boss of a TV station. But when you're young and you're in your 20s and you've got nothing to lose, you think, why not? So I got the job as a reporter with TVAM, was there for about 2 or 3 years. And then I came down to London. It was after Lockerbie. They asked me to come down and do the news hour, 6 to 7 news hour. And I was only supposed to be there for a week. And that was 89. And I've been here ever since. So it worked out.
So let's go from the very beginning where you were born.
Yes.
Okay. Was it just outside Glasgow? Am I right?
It was in Glasgow. It was the RuPaul's in Glasgow.
Okay.
And my mum and dad were very young. They were only 18.
Okay.
And they had me. And we moved to they took me home to it's called a single end. I kind of guess now it would be a studio flat. It was called, basically a single end is one room with an outside toilet.
Okay.
And I didn't realise, but everybody, says that the Gorbals it was a rough area, but an amazing sense of community, real good sense of community. And we moved from that little one bedroom house to, oh my God, the joy of joys, to Bridgeton, where it was a room and kitchen and an inside toilet. So that was a big step up in the world when I was 3. That was really good.
Were you like, I've made it?
Oh, that was it. That was the height of luxury. But my mum and dad were, like I said, they were very young, compared with all my friends, mums and dads. But what was great about that was growing up in the 60s, my mum was wearing mini skirts and makeup she was into. And she was listening to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and, Bob Dylan and all of that. And, she also had all Dusty Springfield records. So I grew up with all this music and with these really young modern parents that taught me to read and write before I went to primary school. They were very into education and, making as much of yourself as you can. They weren't pushy, but everything was there for you. I always think it's weird going into someone's house when there's no books, because I was born surrounded with books and newspapers and magazines and all of that. And I guess that's where I got my love of, love of literature, which lasts till this day. I've always got a book in my bag, It's great, and that's thanks to my mum and dad.
Oh, and just from you saying that, because I've always thought, from seeing you on telly, and I've met you a few times through here, you're very liberal. You're an ally. You're a gay ally for a start.
I hope so.
You are. Weren't you nominated for a...
do you know what? My proudest moment was Attitude. At the Attitude Awards, I go, honorary gay. I am actually gay. I'm an honorary gay. But
you're an HG.
I am. I think that's brilliant. But see, I don't understand why anybody wouldn't be an ally. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, that's probably because you were brought up by your parents if they're introducing you to all this music and this kind of eclectic mix of stuff in that world and very arty, which traditionally art is quite, open to everyone.
But also I think it's that thing of being an outsider, and I always felt a little bit on the outside
looking
in, when I was a kid. It was really quite odd because my mum and dad both worked and they worked really hard. I was considered in Glasgow to be quite posh in a way. It's weird looking at that now, but my mum would put me in really nice little clothes, and she'd put ringlets in my hair and pink ribbons. I might as well have had a sign saying "beat me up." So inevitably,
funnily enough, Lorraine, I was dressed the same, and they did beat me up.
But it also did me too. But it wasn't terrible. But I did get a little bit bullied at school, as you would imagine. But then when we moved from Glasgow to East Kilbride, which is a new town just outside of Glasgow, a bit like Milton Keynes, that sort of idea. I was considered scruff because I'd come from Glasgow. So I had this weird thing going on. And I always felt I was also a bit of a rebel and a little bit of an outsider. And when that happens, outsiders stick together. So an awful lot of my friends were gay. A lot of them were gay growing up. But they were just my pals. I didn't put them in a category. I didn't say, oh, that's Gary, my gay friend. He was just Gary. And I do remember in the 80s, because sadly, Gary died. It was very, very sad. He died of AIDS back in the time where they wouldn't let us see him. Oh, it was awful. It was awful. They wouldn't let us in the hospital. They wouldn't let us see him. He was in a room. Eventually, I did get to see him because I brought him some freesia. Because by that time, he couldn't. Just most of his senses had gone, apart from his sense of smell. He'd gone blind, and it was hellish. It was absolutely hellish. And I remember at the time being worried that, he's not going to be the only one we're going to lose, and thinking that we've got to do something about this, because obviously, this is at that time, we didn't realise how bad it was going to be. But I just thought all Gary needed was a hug. And we were able to do that. We were able to do that eventually. But it was a fight. But I'm talking really early 80s. That was when we first heard about this. And nobody knew what it was. Nobody had any idea what it was. And then I remember, God bless her, I'll never forget it, Elizabeth Taylor. She championed, she was actually, and Princess Diana, when they actually stood up, and it took those two amazing women to make the rest of the world think to themselves, this is not, how can we treat people like pariahs? This is outrageous. And when Diana had that, you know, she shook hands with that lovely guy who was dying, and she shook his hand, and I thought, thank God. And I don't think she got enough credit for that. And I don't think Elizabeth Taylor got enough credit for it either. I really don't.
Yeah, and you see how far, I mean, there is still...
How far we've come.
Yeah.
How far we've come. And it's wonderful. And how far we've come generally. But geez, there's still prejudice out there. Why are we in a situation where part of the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, still will not allow two people who love each other, who happen to be gay, not get married?
It's ridiculous.
What is wrong with people? It makes me furious. It really does. I don't understand.
I know.
It just doesn't make any sense.
And the frustration must come from... Do you need a moment?
I do. It just
You're more angry than I am.
It just gets me so angry. I don't understand
No,
it. It's celebrating love. We should be celebrating people loving each other and wanting to make a commitment to one another and wanting to have a big party for all their pals.
And also people just need to realise that we're not trying to, quote mark, recruit anyone.
Oh, for
we're
Christ's
not,
sakes.
You know,
that drives me nuts.
It's like,
it really does.
I just want to get married.
That always makes me laugh about, you know, straight guys who are really bigoted and who think that, do they honestly think that any gay man is actually going to be after them?
I know.
Give us a break.
We've got a taste.
Exactly. Standards. Thank you very much. Oh.
So you now live in, don't you split your time?
Kinda, yeah, I do. We did move permanently down to just outside of London. We live near Marlow. It's lovely. We used to live there a long, long, long time ago when Rosie was first born. But once Rosie now lives in, my daughter, she lives in Singapore now. Lives and works in Singapore. And we thought, it's crazy going up and down, up and down. Steve's rattling about in a house up in Dundee. So yeah, we decided to move down here, which was actually really interesting because I'd had about 10 years of being on my own during the week and then toddling home.
Oh.
So we had this kind of long distance romance, which in some ways was really good because you never get bored with one another. But in other ways, I really missed him. So it's actually good now, but it takes you've got to adjust. It takes a little bit of adjusting. And it doesn't matter to me being married, 27 years, been together a lot longer than that. But you have to work at it. And
didn't you meet him? Wasn't he one of your cameramen?
He was my cameraman. Yeah, when I was a reporter in Scotland, he walked in. I'll never forget it. Walked into the tiny wee office that we had in Glasgow, and in walks this wee fella from Dundee, and I thought, that's the man I'm going to marry.
Oh, really?
It took me a year.
A year. You knew.
I knew, and I just knew. He makes me laugh, and he makes me laugh to this day.
What was it? Just an instinct? Was it the minute you looked at him?
I don't know whether. Yeah, I just thought there's something about this guy that I really like. You know, obviously it's that kind of attraction thing. You know, I fancied the pants off him. But then when I got to know him, and we got to know each other that year, and then we went to Glencoe to do a story about the mountain rescue team up there. And we ended up having a few drinks with the Mountain Rescue boys. Boy, don't ever try and beat them at a drinking competition.
Okay.
And I found the joys of an Alabama Slammer. Have you ever heard of this?
I believe
it's fantastic. So. It's a shot glass, right? It's a shot glass, and you put some tequila in it, and then you put some, it could be ginger ale or something like that, and then you put your hand over the wee shot glass, bang it on the bar so that it goes whoosh, and then you guzzle it like in a winner. Okay. So we had a few of them, and that's when I made my mark. I made a pounce.
I black out with
like
tequila.
A ninja, I think. I can't do it anymore though. Tequila is I can't do it. I'm a responsible wife and mother. Obviously, I don't have Alabama Slammers.
What do you have? What is your poison?
I do like really, really freezing cold glass of Prosecco.
Oh.
I'm not a big fan of champagne. I think it tastes and smells like cat's pee-pee.
I agree. And you must.
Prosecco's rather lovely.
And you know, we've all got problems, but the amount of events that you probably go to where it's free champagne, and I'm usually a +1, but I go to these events, and I'm like, I don't like champagne.
I don't go to that many.
Oh, do you not?
No, I think partly because it can't be ours.
Yeah, the boring.
And also partly because I can't go to things at night because I'm up early. I can't do it. So that's a wee bit of a shame. I mean, I go to now and again, I do. And also, I'm in the very fortunate position when I love movies, but I wouldn't necessarily go to a premiere of a film unless it was Star Trek, but I wouldn't go to that because I get to see it. I get to see them in little screenings. It's the biggest perk of the job. It's fantastic. So a movie's coming out. Say it was like The Greatest Showman with Hugh Jackman. Well, they put a wee screening on for you. So you go to a lovely wee theatre in Soho on your own. Nobody is eating and talking and unwrapping sweetie papers. That drives me crazy. You just watch the film and then you go and interview Hugh Jackman. I mean, that is, sometimes I say it out loud and I just think I've got to pinch myself.
Yeah, does it still...
Oh, gosh, yes. Oh, yes. Still get excited about it. Yeah.
So Hugh Jackman...
Oh, the nicest man in the world.
Really?
Oh, my goodness me.
That's good to know.
He is lovely, and he genuinely is a lovely, lovely man. And I remember talking to him, because obviously you get your 10-minute slot, but if he likes you, you'll sit and have a wee chat. And I was just saying to him, why you have to go back to Hollywood and teach all of these, people how to behave, because him and Tom Hanks are two of the nicest guys. And as Hugh Jackman said, look, it's my job. I've got to do these interviews. That's what Tom Hanks says as well. I've got to do them. So why be grumpy about it? Then everybody has a rubbish time. You might as well, you've got to do it. He said, for goodness sake, I'm sitting in a posh hotel. Somebody's given me a lovely suit to wear and I'm talking about myself. And a film that I love and I'm passionate about. And you just say, oh, I wish everyone was like that, I'll tell you.
Are you allowed to say any that haven't been as...
Sure. Kevin Spacey was horrid.
Oh.
He was not nice. And that was before, actually, not that long before all of the allegations, which I know are at the moment allegations. But he was really...
I've heard horror stories about him.
Ungracious, I think, is what I would say. And just made it very, very difficult for all concerned. And I thought, what a shame, because he was talking about House of Cards before he got biffed from House of Cards. And he was just, he was difficult. And there was no need for him to be difficult. I understand if people are a bit... Maybe they're shy. I don't know. Although I can't imagine many actors are shy, but they might be. I mean, I remember talking to Ralph Fiennes, actually, and he doesn't like being interviewed very much, but what a lovely, lovely guy.
Yeah.
So it shows, even if you don't want to do it necessarily, you can still be... You can still be gracious about it. You can still be... And he was a delight compared with the likes of Kevin Spacey, which was... it was a real eye-opener, actually. And when the allegations happened, I kind of went, yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people did kind of do that.
It was an accident wait. I mean, everybody knew it was going to happen, I guess. It was only afterwards I sort of knew, and all these stories started coming out. But we'll need to wait and see what happens with that, I guess. But gosh, I mean, it just shows you, though, people that are terribly arrogant, usually, I think, I believe in karma, and it might not happen right away, but I think if somebody is really mean-spirited and bigoted, karma is going to bite them on the bum eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually. One would like to hope.
So, 30 years of breakfast.
Gosh, I know.
Telly.
Scary.
And I was looking at the kind of timeline. It's very confusing, but it was LK Today.
Oh, jeez, it's been called everything. What's all that about?
They've simplified it now, haven't they? It's just Lorraine.
Yes,
okay.
it is.
And how long have you been doing Lorraine as it's this brand?
About 25 years, because Rosie is 25 nearly. So it must be about 25 years, because before that I did GMTV with Eamon.
Of course, I know.
And we're both still here, both survivors. He's brilliant. He's such an amazing broadcaster.
Lovely.
He's a really good guy. He's a really, really good, very generous guy. He's fantastic. And then before that, I did TVAM with Mike Morris. And Mike was, again, very underrated, Mike. Very underrated, very, very good at his job. But he wasn't shouty or showy. He just sort of got on with it. He really did. He was really good. So there's been lots and lots of different regimes and different permutations. But I started doing my own show just after Rosie. I think she was born in the June, and then I started doing my own show in the January, which was great.
And actually, weirdly, I spoke to Eamon about something similar, and I was going to ask you this. As a freelancer, you're self-employed, you're a freelancer, and for 25 years, has there ever been points? Because Eamon said to me, every job I take, I assume it's going to be my last.
Oh gosh, I couldn't agree with
still have that?
Absolutely. I still think I'm getting away with it. I honestly think somebody, as we are talking, I think somebody's going to walk in, tap me on the shoulder and say, okay, we've found you out.
It like imposter syndrome.
Totally. And I would kind of go, yeah. Because there is that wee thing. I don't know whether it's a working class thing or what it is, but there's that thing of you're not quite good enough.
Well,
you're not quite good enough. And I think Eamon's a wee bit like that as well.
I have a theory on that. And I think the best... I've known a lot of performers.
Oh, gosh,
a lot of friends.
You must see everybody. Yeah, of course.
And I think the best performers or the best art comes from the fact that you always don't think you're going to be good enough. Because then you push yourself to carry on.
That's a really
and
good
I've met dancers, quote marks, actors, singers, quote marks, who aren't very good, who think they're amazing. And I think you're not good because you've always thought you were brilliant.
So you don't have to kind of work hard. Because I think you've got to put in the work. I mean, I always do my homework. Of course I do. I go and see the movie. I read the book. You
go and meet Hugh Jackman.
Exactly. It's so tough. Gosh, it's hard, isn't it? But I do, if I'm going to see something, I make sure that I've got all the information. I don't put down questions so much, Lee, but I put down bullet points.
Yeah.
Because it's like what we're having, it's conversation, isn't it? And you never know what direction that conversation is going to go, but you need to have all the background that you've done the work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's absolutely vital. You can't just bounce into it. You really can't. And even to this day, I still, I spend hours researching and working things out.
Well, I've met you, what we're on about 10:30 as we're recording this, and you've just finished a debrief and then a brief for your show tomorrow.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I wanted to just very quickly in a nutshell, because I assume a lot of people think you rock up, you have your makeup done, you have breakfast, you sit down on the chair and you chat.
You toddle off.
Yeah, and it's not like that. I know it's not. What is a typical day?
A typical day starts about 5.
Right.
I usually get up just before 5 o'clock, and I'm always very organised. I always have my clothes out, comfies, my comfies I call them.
Mm-hmm.
Have a quick shower, and I always check the news as soon as I wake up. I check my phone, and then on the way into work, I go through all the scripts that I've already seen, but I go through them again, because an awful lot of the show we do on the day. We do it in the morning,
of course,
and then we come in, have a meeting about what we're going to do. Bear in mind that can change dramatically. Go through everything. Hair and makeup, which takes longer and longer the older you get. It takes a long time. No, Helen Hand, who does my makeup, she's a genius, absolute genius. You want to see me when I first come in. It's terrifying. So she sorts all of that out. In the meantime, I'm in contact with the team all the time. They're buzzing in and out. Things have changed. This has moved. We're in London, so guests are late, so we have to move things around. But viewers will never know, hopefully, that we've moved things around.
Mm-hmm.
But it might be that we just have to because of circumstances, or we have to drop things because a breaking news story happens, or whatever. And then we do the show. After the show, we have a debrief. Then we talk about what we're going to do the next day. And then I just check in with the team throughout the day. And they usually call me about 5 for about an hour to go through everything again.
Right. So you're still...
Yeah, you're kind of... Yeah, you are. And then after that, I go and I sit and I do my homework. So usually get finished about sometimes 7, sometimes 8. It depends.
Wow.
And then in the meantime, during that day, you might have to go and see a movie. For me, that's no hardship because I love that.
Of course.
Or you have to go see a play or read a book or whatever. Or watch a TV thing.
Do you have any pre-show rituals?
Not really, but I'm very kind of like organised in that sense. I do like that. I am very neat and very sort of tight to the point of maybe it's too much sometimes. And I'm always early for things. Like my husband says, we're always the first ones to arrive at a party. So I've got this fear of being late. It really, because I can't be late for my job. I can't be late.
Of course, it's like
I can't come in, sort of 10 minutes late and everybody goes, oh, it's fine, We showed a picture of cats in a basket, or Piers had a rant, for 10 minutes. You can't really do that.
Well, that does sometimes happen.
You've got to be there, so that's the thing. But I know not really so much a ritual. I always have a cup of tea though. Always have a cup of tea. That's my thing. But as far as tea and porridge.
All right. Okay.
I have that about 6 a.m. Yeah. And then, of course, because of the funny hours, round about now, I'm sort of getting a bit peckish because it's kind of my lunchtime, which is a bit mad. But yeah.
Okay. You probably get asked this as a talk show. Would you say you're a talk show host?
Kinda.
What's the role? What's the job?
I don't really know. I mean, I think
host.
Because the thing about it is it's so different, because we do. Yes, there is aspects of being a talk show host when we're doing celeb interviews, but and we do obviously entertainment, a wee bit like the E Channel. We do all the entertainment news, but then we do a lot of human interest as well. We can do breaking news too. So yeah, we do health. We do like a lot of public awareness campaigns and things. So, yes, everything.
Daytime telly, you go on, obviously you're yourself, but there must be an element where you're listening to a story of a man who's just lost his wife to cancer or something like that 4 weeks ago. And as a person, you obviously get really emotional towards that.
And you have to be careful.
And you have to kind of almost play a role in the sense that you have to detach yourself from that.
Sure.
And then the next part, you're talking about adorable cats that are taken a ride on the tube or something ridiculous. Yeah. How do you, are there methods you do that?
It's quite hard. I mean, it can be very, very difficult because obviously, people don't want to see me sort of, and the last thing in the world I want to do is upset a guest who's been so brave to come on and talk about something that's so, so very important to them. So there is, I suppose there's a persona. if you know what I mean.
Of course.
And, and some days I come on, unfortunately my dad's not very well just now, and he's going through a tough time. I can't come in the morning, crying and saying, my dad's not well and I'm having a terrible time, because people don't want that. They want to see, the show, the way that the show is, and sometimes it will be emotional and sometimes it will be funny and sometimes it'll be thought-provoking, I hope. But you've got to sort of you have to kind of pull yourself together and get on with it, which is always the mantra. That I can hear my mother in the back, saying to me, just get on with it. The show must go on and you've got to do it. So I think we're all a bit like that. I don't think it matters what job that you do. I think everybody has to do that to a certain extent.
Yeah,
of
course.
We all are a bit like that. I mean, I think we're all a little bit like that. Like I say, you are yourself. But you're not totally. I mean, I'm not sitting there sort of knocking back tequila sunrises and swearing, because that would be bad. But I might
Alabama
do that. Yes, I might do that in my real life. But of course, so we're all versions of ourselves.
Yeah, and you go and see a play. You would never see a play, and if the person came on and was all upset because something that the show must go in.
Exactly.
That is the mantra.
Yeah.
But what I was going to ask when I said talk show host, everyone always asks this to any people who have guests.
Yeah.
Dream guest. Gosh. Or have you already had your dream guest?
I have had quite a few dream guests.
You've had some great guests. I remember, for anyone who doesn't know, I met you. They trialled audience
That's
shows.
Right. Yeah, we did that.
It didn't work.
No, it didn't work because it's that
it was
wrong
early
time
in the morning,
that would have worked
cheering.
Beautifully at night or at tea time. It would have been great, and it was a very interesting experiment. I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
it was really good.
You were so welcoming to me. I was a bit nervous about meeting you. I
have
to say I was, because I was like, well, I mean, you've been on telly. I grew up. It's the same with Eamon. I grew up watching you, and I do have weird moments. Even kind of sat here now where I'm like, I'm talking to Lorraine Kelly. I'm texting Lorraine Kelly. And you came and gave me a big hug.
But you were great. You were so good at your job, because
you
got the audience going, which was wonderful. It was absolutely brilliant. I think you've got the hardest job in the world.
It is. Really it can be tough,
and you really have to work really hard. It's a tough one, especially if it's a long record. I mean, with us, it wasn't. We just did it as live,
I mean, you were bam, 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 bam.
If it's a long record, then it is.
But one of the guests that time was Kate Winslet.
Absolutely.
Another one where I was, I think it was a pre-record you were doing with her, so the audience was gone, but I was hanging around.
Oh, she was.
I was like, I might just bump into her.
She's a good pal of the show, though. She loves our Nick Rylance, who does all of our bookings for giant names, and she adores him. So that was great. And someone like that, I really liked her because she didn't come. We could ask her anything. She wasn't bothered about it. She said, yeah, you can ask me anything at all. And she was on to that movie she did with Idris Elba, so that was really good. And I enjoyed that. She was a dream guest. Because I love everything to do with space and sci-fi and things like that, delighted I met Leonard Nimoy, who plays Spock, who was my first crush as a kid. I mean, I told you I was a bit of an odd child, but loved it. And also Buzz Aldrin, Second Man on the Moon. I mean, that was incredible. But I'll tell you who I'd love to interview. I'd really love to interview Michelle Obama. I think that'd be very interesting. And tell her to please run for president. I did interview Oprah Winfrey. Now, that was hard. Because she's Oprah Winfrey. And before I interviewed her, we've always got this thing, me and my friends, we always go, if we've got a dilemma, what would Oprah do? We always say that to ourselves. What do you think Oprah would do about that?
She'd give out free cars to the
audience. Exactly. So we always get this thing about Oprah Winfrey. And then, of course, when I met her, I was very nervous about meeting her, obviously, because she's the doyenne and she's the example and she's, the goddess.
And she's also done a show very similar to yours. So you would have kind of think, oh, God,
she was lovely. And so generous and so kind and exactly what you would think she was. So I was thrilled to bits. The producer I took along with us was such a fan of hers. He sat in the corner almost in tears of happiness. It was wonderful. And it's great to see that. It's really good to see people. And also when the person that they really admired lives up to their expectations, which obviously she did. She was fantastic.
I'm looking down at your phone case right now.
Yes.
And you have a RuPaul phone case.
I do.
You truly are an honorary gay. Have you ever had RuPaul?
A long time ago.
Really?
She was when she was in drag, and I've never seen a more beautiful human being. Astonishingly beautiful. And I'm in the British series of RuPaul's Drag Race, which is coming, I think, in September. So I'm actually I'm a guest on it.
Oh, are you?
I'm not a drag queen, although I could be. But I'm a guest on it. I'd be a drag king. I would.
So you're going to be a judge?
Well, I'm going to be a guest for the Snatch game, but don't tell anybody. It's not allowed to tell anyone.
Oh, really?
Maybe a bit late now. Cat's out the bag, innit?
I was just going to say, this is a podcast. Okay, fab. I mean, I was telling you before we started, I'm the worst gay because I've not seen RuPaul.
How can you not have seen RuPaul's? You're a bad gay.
I've seen it. I know.
Bad gay.
Oh, Lorraine Kelly's called me a bad gay. I'm going to watch the British one.
Watch the British one because it's going to be brilliant. Yeah. It's going to be absolutely out of this world.
I was telling you earlier, it's because there's so many series of it, and I'm just a bit like,
I know, but think of all that catch up you've got to do.
I've got loads.
It's. Do you know what I love about it? It's life affirming. Yes, it's funny. Yes, it can be snarky, and and some of the queens can be a bit mean to one another sometimes, but it's got real heart. And some of the stories that are told, they're inspirational. It's very sad sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what people have gone through, maybe when they've come out to their parents have shunned them, and they found their own family, their own family in the community, which is fantastic. But it's funny. Jeez, it's funny. I mean, I love it. It's my favourite thing on telly. I absolutely love it.
What else do you watch?
Oh, geez, I watch everything.
Yeah.
I don't watch as much TV as I used to at the time it's on, because we can do all these other things Netflix and the ITV Hub and all of that. I still watch Corrie. I watch that, and I watch loads and loads of Netflix. Loads of Netflix. Far too much of it actually, but I do love it. I like Billions.
Oh yeah, not seen that.
Yeah, it's all right. It's Billions. Have you watched Pose?
No.
You are, honestly.
I'm sorry.
Honestly, Lee,
I don't.
Got to watch Pose. It's fantastic. It's about like the 80s, when.
Oh yes, I've Pose.
It's really good.
Yes.
It's really, really good. It's about that whole sort of drag scene in New York.
The thing is, you get recommended. You're like, oh, I'll start, and then someone else is going, watch this. It's another one. We've got too much. We're spoiled for choice.
We are spoiled for choice. It's too much now, isn't it? There's loads and loads and loads, but some really great stuff out there.
Lorraine, I ask everyone this at the end of the podcast. Your mantra for life.
My mantra for life. Do you know what it would be? It would be, and it's the thing my gran told me, don't keep things for bests. When somebody gives you perfume or lingerie or a present or a scented candle and you think, I'll keep that. No. Light the candle, wear the underwear, spray on the perfume.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. Someone once said that to me as well. Don't save it for best.
Yeah.
Lorraine, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Adore you.
Right back at you.
You can go eat now, even though it's 10:30 or 10 to 11.
I know I'm going to go for lunch. How mad is that?
No. Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you, hon.